Once upon a time, in the heart of the vibrant kingdom of Eldoria, there was one figure above all others who commanded respect by love and by fear, King Alden. Alden was a ruler who had built his kingdom on the wealth of the land and the strength of its people. He was a man of power and ambition, but his nature was far from righteous. His heart had grown cold over the years, and his reign was tainted with greed and distrust. His subject feared his wrath. However, his daughter Hadiah was a different story altogether. From the day she was born, it was clear that she would be great. She was groomed with wisdom, courage, and power. Her father, despite his flaws, spared no expense in ensuring that she was given the best education and finest tutors, teaching her the art of leadership, diplomacy, and the ancient customs of Eldoria. Her beauty was unmatched, but it was her fierce intelligence, her innate sense of justice, and the way she carried herself with grace that truly set her apart. Her father, King Alden, looked at her with a mixture of pride and cold calculation. To him, Hadiah was not just a daughter, but a pawn in his plans to strengthen his power. He cared very little about her as a person. He saw her as a way to solidify his reign. Though he was distant and harsh in his treatment of her, he never showed it in front of the kingdom, at least not openly. As she grew older, whispers of Hadiah's wisdom and power spread beyond the palace walls. She was the pride of Eldoria. Many believed that the day she ascended the throne, the kingdom would flourish as never before. But not everyone was pleased by the idea of a powerful woman in charge. In the palace, however, one person whom everyone saw as a threat was King Alden's second in command, a cunning nobleman named Zechariah. Unlike Hadiah, everyone saw Zechariah as a man of few principles, driven solely by the thirst for power. He saw in Hadiah a rival, someone who would one day eclipse its own ambitions, and he grew restless in the shadow of the young princess. At least, that was how everyone saw him. But it wasn't just Zechariah who feared Hadiah. Far from Eldor's palace, a young woman named Amara had lived in exile. Her parents were violently killed when she was a newborn, and she had been raised by kind-hearted people who had tried to protect her from the storm of violence and betrayal that had stolen her life as a baby. She has had a very difficult life that has shaped her to be fierce, brutal, and heartless. She was the leader of a very powerful and dangerous gang. People that longed for chaos, for Eldoria to crumble. They have only one goal, for the kingdom of Eldoria to fall apart. They knew Hadiah's vision of a better kingdom was dangerous, and to stop her, they would need to strike at the heart. Zechariah saw this as an opportunity. So one day, he traveled to see the leader of this dark group that many feared. He infiltrated their camp and posed as someone who had been greatly wronged by King Haalden and the princess. He told a story of how he and his family were accused falsely and banished from the kingdom. He pleaded that they should help him get revenge. Amar saw this as an opportunity to take power, to dethrone the king and his daughter and take over. She saw this as an opportunity to live a better life. So she agreed to help Zechariah, as she sees it as a win-win situation. With the help of Zechariah, they raided the palace one night. While everyone was sleeping, the princess was kidnapped. It was on a night shrouded in heavy rain that the fate took a dark turn. The moon shone over the sky, shining over the palace and the kingdom beyond. The air was thick with tension, and the night seemed to hold its breath. The castle was quiet, but not still. In the darkness, the bandits moved swiftly, slipping through the corridors and walls that had once been safe and sacred. Hadia, preparing for an upcoming council meeting, had retired early, unaware of the danger lurking so close. The bandits were swift, their hands had been trained for this, and their movements flawless. They knew why they were here, for just one thing: Hadia. When morning came, Hadia's maid went in as usual to wake the princess up. But to her dismay, her bed was empty. She could have reasoned that Hadia was somewhere around the palace. But no, the setting, the muds on the floor, the scattered sheets sent shiver down her spine. She knew that something was wrong. She hurriedly reported to the king, and instantly there was chaos in the palace. The sun rose with unsettling stillness. There was no laughter, no songs from the servants preparing breakfast. The guards, usually stationed with careful watch, were nowhere to be seen. They had all gone in search for the princess. The quiet was deafening. Yes, the princess was gone. News spread quickly like wildfire through the kingdom. The royal family, the nobles, and the common people all felt the void left by the princess' disappearance. The castle was in chaos. King Alden's fury echoed through the walls of the palace. His rage burned hotter than the midday sun as he called for his soldiers to search every inch of the kingdom. But there were no answers, no sign of the princess, no ransom notes, no trace of her captors. As days passed, rumors began to swell. Had she run away? Was she kidnapped? Some whispered that the Darkwood bandits had struck again, while others wondered if perhaps Hadia had grown tired of the pressures of royalty and decided to flee. But the truth was far darker. The people of Eldoria, who had once adored the princess, now found themselves gripped by fear and uncertainty. What happened to Princess Hadia? Was she dead? Was she alive? Hidden away in some forgotten corner of the kingdom? As the search continued, the king was consumed by his own battle. He could not lose Hadia, absolutely. For all his faults, he knew that a ruler's power came from their legacy, from their bloodline. His daughter was supposed to carry his name, his kingdom into the future. But now it seemed that future was slipping through his fingers like sand. But there was more at stake than just power. Hadia's vision for Eldoria was a threat to those who had helped him climb to the throne. And now those very same forces had worked in the shadows to make sure that vision would never come to pass. In the weeks that followed, King Alden sank deeper into paranoia. Unable to trust anyone, not even his closest allies, Zechariah, ever so watchful, noticed the king's desperation and began to circle like a predator sensing weakness. It was not just the throne that was at stake, it was the future of the kingdom itself. But no matter how hard Alden searched, Hadia remained elusive. Meanwhile, a few days later, when Hadia woke up, it was not to the comfort of her bed, but to cold stone walls. The dark air of an ancient tower filled her lungs. Her wrists were shackled, her body sore from the restraints, and the oppressive gloom of the chamber chilled her to the bone. She was scared. Candles flickered weakly in the corners, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. Finally, someone emerged from the darkness. Finally, you're awake, a voice whispered. It's feminine, but unfamiliar. Hadia's pulse quickened. Where am I? What is this? Please, where am I? The figure stepped forward. Her presence was commanding and serene. Slowly, she pulled back her hood, revealing a face that was somehow familiar. Her eyes, the same rich brown, stared back at her with an intensity that made Hadia's breath catch in her throat. I am Amara, the woman declared, and I am the true princess of Eldoria. Hadia's world tilted, her breath froze, and for a moment she thought she might lose her mind. What has this woman said? Her thoughts scrambled to make sense of the words, but the more she tried, the more impossible it seemed. What? Hadia gasped, the weight of her chains pulling at her. Amara's lip curled into a bitter smile. Your father stole my life. She continued. He took everything from me. My birthright, my title, my future. And you know what? It's time for me to take it back. Hadia's mind swirled in confusion, the fragments of her memories crashing against each other like waves in a storm. She wanted to deny the truth in Amara's words, to shout that it wasn't true. But deep down, a growing, terrifying realization began to form. Before Adia could protest, Amara gave a sharp nod to the guards lurking in the shadows. Take her away. Make sure she never returns. The guard, towering in silence, seized Hadia roughly, dragging her through a hidden passage. Her heart was pounding. As they moved through the dark corridors, Hadia's mind raced. Could it be true? Had father truly done that? Was Amara the true heir to the throne of Eldoria? Of course not. I know that father can be ambitious, but not to this extent. No way. I will not let this stranger throw me off guard. This passed in the dim, oppressive silence of her prison. Hadia never stopped searching for an escape, but the walls were thick and her chains were heavy. Yet, in the depths of the night, when the guards were drowsy and the castle seemed to fall asleep, Hadia overheard whispers from the shadows. She doesn't know, one voice said. Not yet, but the truth will come to her in time. We can't let Alden keep his reign any longer. The time has come for everything to be revealed. The voice. Hadia immediately recognized it. It was Zacharias. Of course not, another replied, his voice slow. If she knew the real reason she was taken, the kingdom would fall apart. Hadia's heart raced. What truth are they talking about? What could be so terrible that the very foundation of the kingdom might collapse if she uncovered it? With renewed resolve, Hadia waited for the night to fall again. She slipped past the guards, using a jagged stone from the door to break her chains. Quietly, she moved through the dark corridors, guided by instinct, until she found a narrow staircase hidden behind an ancient, big portrait. It spiraled downward into the bowels of the castle. At the bottom of the stairs was a chamber, cold and forgotten. Inside, a dusty book lay on an old stone, sealed with a royal crest. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal and opened the book. The truth unfurled before her eyes like a nightmare. The book revealed the unimaginable. King Alden was not the rightful ruler of Eldoria. Years ago, he had orchestrated a coup against the rightful king, Amara's father. King Suki just welcomed his twin daughters a few weeks ago. And that night, while the kingdom was celebrating, King Alden attacked. His men killed the queen and the king. To secure his reign, Alden secretly stole the baby, Hadia, to make sure he had the royal line with him. Because he had heard a prophecy that the newborn will grow strong, and no matter what, the royal line lies on her shoulders, and she will be great, and that the newborn would, before her 21st birthday, ascend the throne. In line with that prophecy, Alden made a desperate choice, fearing that the baby would one day come to take what was hers. He was bent on keeping the baby. But there was one thing Alden had not known. They were twins. So he took the baby, raising a girl who was never meant to be his daughter, while he hid the truth from the kingdom. And now Amara was back, older, wiser, and ready to claim what was hers. Hadia stood there in shock, clutching the notes, the paper, the book, as the walls of her world crumbled. Her entire life had been a lie. But even as doubt clouded her mind, she knew there was no time to grieve. She had to stop Amara. She had to save the kingdom. Amara, on the other hand, was already on her way to reclaim the throne. She went with all her best men, and their aim was either to take back the kingdom or destroy it completely if anyone stood in their way. Soon, they arrived Eldoria, ready for war. But first, she went straight to the throne room to take the crown. The men who had seen her entourage raced to inform the king that the dark forces bandits were heading to the throne room. King Alden panicked. He feared if Hadia had returned to commit treason. He instantly ordered his warriors to prepare to attack. Both the king's men and Amara arrived at the throne at the same time. There was chaos. People could see the resemblance between Amara and their beloved princess, but they knew she wasn't Hadia. People began to murmur. Amara quickly broke the silence. My name is Princess Amara, and I'm the rightful heir to this throne, and I am back to take back what belongs to me. Everyone was stunned, and in that moment, the realization became clear to Alden, and he knew that he needed to act swiftly. So he ordered his men to attack and take her away. Meanwhile, after uncovering the truth with a fierce determination, Hadia raced to the palace, desperate to confront her father and to confront Amara. The throne room was filled with nobles, the high chief standing with a crown in his hands. As Amara stood before the crowd, her regal presence commanding the room, Hadia burst through the doors. Stop! She cried, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Amara's gaze snapped to Hadia, and a flicker of surprise crossed her face. You should be dead, Amara hissed, her voice filled with venom. I know the truth, Hadia said, her heart heavy but resolute. And you're not the only heir. We are sisters. The room went deathly quiet. The nobles whispered in shocked tones. The high chief hesitated, his hands hovering around the crown. Amara's expression darkened. Lies! She spat. Hadia held up the book. Read it for yourself, she said, her voice firm but calm. Amara snatched the book, her hands shaking as she read the damning words. When she finished, tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time, vulnerability flickered across her face. All of these years, I thought I was alone, she whispered. Hadia stepped closer, her gaze softening. We don't have to be enemies. We can rule together. I can be by your side. The room held its breath, awaiting Amara's response. Then, for the first time, the woman who had once been a shadow of vengeance allowed a smile to break through her pain. Together, they would rule. Together, they would ride the rounds of Eldoria. The grand hall of Eldoria's palace was dimly lit by towering chandeliers. The air was heavy with the scent of opulence, flowers, incense. King Alden sat upon his golden throne, His eyes narrowed in calculation as he watched the girls approach him. Hadia and Amara stood together now, their bond undeniable, the truth finally unraveling between them. Behind them, Zechariah stood silently, his heart pounding with anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the culmination of years of hidden truth and risk taken. Father, Hadia's voice rang out, clear and firm. We know the truth. Alden's eyes flickered for a moment, a shadow of surprise passing through before them. What truth, my daughter? He asked, his voice laced with forced calm. You stole my sister from me. Hadia spat, her voice raw with emotion. You took me from my real family and raised me as your own. You twisted the kingdom's fate to your own design, thinking you could keep us apart forever? But you were wrong. Alden rose from his throne, his posture agreed with authority. You speak nonsense, both of you. Amara is your sister, but she's not the true heir. You are Hadia. You've always been the one to take my place. Amara stepped forward, her expression unyielding. You are a liar. We both know that I am the true heir to Eldoria, and no matter how many lies you tell, you cannot change your truth. Zechariah's voice cut through the tension. It was I who orchestrated Hadia's disappearance. I did it to protect her, both of you. Your reign, Alden, has been built on betrayal and deception, but it ends today. For the first time, the king's composure faltered. His eyes darkened, his arms gripping the sides of the throne as though trying to hold on to the fading threads of power. You betray me too, Zechariah, he sneered. I betray no one, Zechariah responded firmly. I only sought to protect the truth. And now it's time for Eldoria to know who its true rulers are. The girl's heart dropped as understanding began to take hold. Zechariah had known the truth all along. He had been the one who had helped them, not because he wanted to get revenge, but because he knew the truth was too dangerous for them to ever find out without a plan. It had been Zechariah who had engineered her kidnapping. He had done it all to ensure that the sisters would finally meet, and that the truth would come to light, and that they would rise together to claim their birthright. When the moment came for Zechariah to reveal his role, he appeared before Hadia. Hadia, he said, his voice low, you were never meant to be Alden's daughter. You were meant to rule beside Amara, your sister, the true heir to Eldoria. Hadia's eyes widened. You knew? All this time? I knew, Zechariah replied. I did everything I could to keep you safe, but it wasn't just about you. It was about the kingdom and the truth that needed to be revealed. Zechariah, once a shadow of rumors, was finally freed from his burden, knowing he had done the right thing. The kingdom of Eldoria will be restored, built on a foundation of trust, truth, and the love of the two princesses that were no longer stolen. Alden took a step forward, his expression twisted in anger. You think you can dethrone me? Do you really believe the kingdom will accept this? This nonsense you've created? You are nothing without me. Your time is over, Alden, Amara declared, her eyes burning with determination. The truth has been set free. No more lies, no more secrets. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The tension was unbearable. Then, with a final sharp movement, Amara reached for the crown that had sat on Alden's head for so long. She lifted it from its pedestal and held it in the air. And then she looked at Alden. This crown is not yours to wear anymore, Amara said, her voice steady. Eldoria will no longer be ruled by lies and tyranny. It will be ruled by truth and justice. You will pay for this, Alden said, his voice laced with venom. But there was no power behind his words now. The weight of the truth had already crushed his reign. Hadia took a step closer to Amara, her voice soft but resolute. It's over, father. Your rule is finished. The room was silent. For the first time in years, there was no fear in the air, only the undeniable weight of justice. Zechariah watched silently, his heart heavy with the knowledge of all that had been lost and all that had been gained. He had played his part, his burdens had been carried, and the sisters now stood together as they were always meant to be. Alden, defeated and broken, finally lowered his gaze. His power had crumbled, and there was nothing left for him to do but to fade into the shadows of history. So, guys, what do you think about this story? Did you have a clue from the onset? What do you think the girls should do about the wicked king? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you in our next story. If you haven't done so already, please remember to subscribe, like this video, and share with your friends. Bye.